So let's say the casinos were to open. What are they going to look like inside? Well, the Nevada Gaming Control Board has finally issued some directives that show what casinos are going to have to do in order to reopen in terms of social distancing, cleaning machines, what's going to be open, numbers and limits of people on table games, and that's what we're going over in this video right here. I have my little notes that I took this morning to research this stuff, and I think you guys might be interested to see what the new Las Vegas was going to look like. This applies to big boys like the Bellagio and the Caesars Palace. It also filters down to smaller resorts and casinos and little bars that have gaming in them. So we're going to go through all that right now. My name is Steven. I'm not leaving Las Vegas. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, or else you never know if YouTube will recommend me to you ever again. And also, if you want to participate or support the channel, go over to Patreon. You can be in the credits. You can get stuff I don't post on YouTube. And if you guys want to also participate, head on over to the merchandise Teespring, or just, like I say, do me a huge favor. Helps more than anything. Like, share, subscribe, comment on what you think about these guidelines, and if you think it's okay, because it's starting to sound okay. We're getting a little bit, deep breath. We know what's going to happen. Number one, casinos in all places are going to have to limit their occupancy to 50% for each area. Casinos have different limits for different areas. The casino floor might have a limit. The race and sports books have a limit. Restaurants, bars, places where people will hang out have limits. They're all based on the fire codes. Casinos are so big that they often are going to have different limits for different areas. So it's going to be occupancy, 50% limit based on that area in the casino, based on the fire codes given out by the Clark County Fire Department or whatever fire department is taking care of that area of the state. This is going to be enforced, they recommend, by just like your Walmart store, having people counting at the door, having not every single door open, or if they are open, you better be all in unison for counting people in and people out, 50%. Now, since we looked to China to see what happened with their gaming, and they're at 20% of the action they had, 20% of the tourism, maybe for a while limiting it to 50% won't be a big deal. Let's say 30% of the people come back to Las Vegas and you're limiting to 50. Okay, I understand. You're probably never going to have a problem. But if it does get busier here, hopefully that means that the whole virus is clearing up and we would lift those limits past 50%. But that's looking down the future into a crystal ball, which I don't have. Number two, have hand sanitizer available for all guests and employees, and have a schedule and proof that it's being used for everybody. So patrons need to have it everywhere. Wipes have to be somewhere, but mostly disinfectant with the the lotion, the hand sanitizer gels. And make sure that the casinos are using it all the time, and the guests have it and the dealers have it. But we're also going to have to make sure that the dealers and the guests are using things as the games change players and as the dealers change shifts. And we're going to get to that in just half a second. Number three, slots. Create social distancing in the slot areas. We're going to get to the table games right after this, but they're recommending that casinos remove chairs in between slot machines, maybe even remove slot machines altogether, but I don't imagine any resort is going to want to do that. It'll look barren inside. I'm sure you've gone to stores. We did our video on Fry's Electronics here, and you can see how different a retail store looks when most of the displays have been removed. So if you don't turn off the machines, or if you don't get rid of the machines, that is to say, you have to create social distancing. So they're recommending you remove the chairs in between the machines. They're also recommending that security be on people nicely. I'm guessing the casinos will do it. They're not saying nicely, but nobody wants to make guests mad. And remind people about congregating around machines and gaming areas and to enforce social distancing. Hopefully it won't be like that video down in, I think it was Florida, where a nice park ranger got pushed into a lake for no reason because he was trying to talk about it. But when people are saying social distancing to you, just remember one thing. They're just doing their jobs. I would hate to be in the position of a security guard working in the casino. People are having a drink, people are gambling, maybe that guy lost all of his money, and you have to go tell him to social distance. You don't know what his demeanor is going to be. So that's a thing in Vegas I talked about in a video. Maybe people are a little more hot-headed on that social distancing. What do you think? What do you think? Are you going to be enforced? I don't know. Table games coming up next. Table games, this is very specific for what they're allowing. So when it comes to blackjack, 3 players per table on blackjack. When it comes to craps games, 6 players, that's 3 on each side for a craps table. Roulette, 4 players maximum on roulette. And poker games, 4 players maximum on poker games. Now, interestingly enough, there is nothing here about social distancing and requirements on the table games, which seems strange to me. If you look at a craps table, I guess you could socially distance people with 6, 3 on each side, plus a dealer. But they're also saying, again, let's have the security, remind people nicely not to congregate, not to hang out in big groups. A couple of the casinos, including the Venetian, are going to be trying to dissuade people from actually congregating around a player that's maybe has a hot hand on a craps table or something like that. But that's part of the fun, isn't it? Isn't it part of the fun watching somebody with a hot hand, watching a guy with a giant stack of chips, do something on a blackjack table and maybe win or lose all of his money? We live vicariously through people in Las Vegas. Maybe we'll have to do that from a distance, Number 5, all gaming items, and I mean all of them, from chips to counts to money to the boxes that pull in and pull out to the tables. All that stuff has to be cleaned when a new employee touches it or when a new player touches it. So if a new player sits down at the table, they're going to have to clean and disinfect things. Whether or not that's going to interrupt the flow of a game, I guess will be seen in the future, but this is a new future we're going into. You haven't been out of your house in almost 2 months. If you're here in Vegas, are you just happy to be here in Vegas? Question for you in the comments, are you willing to tolerate that? If they had to slow down the game, would you be, no, I just want to play, don't do this anymore, I'm not coming to Vegas? Because if this is the norm in Vegas, we'll get to this in a minute, but this will probably be the norm in many, 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 many places, because Vegas is the giant and everybody does monkey see, monkey do, so to speak. Number 6, no groups, social distancing in the race and sports book. Oh my gosh, some of my best memories on the Strip in Las Vegas are when I was working and doing the timeshare gig near the Planet Hollywood. You would go in, it would be like the World Cup or the Stanley Cup Finals or football playoffs, and you would see all these people packed to the risers, so to speak. Like you couldn't even find a seat in the race and sports book at Planet Hollywood. Everybody's watching Team USA play team whatever, and everybody is cheering. And I guess that can't happen for right now, which sucks. So the race and sports book will be socially distanced. No groups in the race and sports book. Or if you have a group, don't congregate. Please move along, sir. Like South Park, move along, sir. And that is a bummer, but at least you can place your bets and you can have some faith in your team, assuming that professional sports reopens. We don't have race or sports books right now, but I think there's some horse tracks and dog tracks going around the country. Number 7, this is one that a lot of people have asked about. I heard a rumor that there was a YouTube channel much bigger than me that said these are done forever. Not necessarily. Specifically, nightclubs and day clubs are closed until further notice. So they're not saying the nightclubs and day clubs are closed. They're closed until further notice. Now, whether or not the companies that run the nightclubs and day clubs, because they're usually a space provided to a company like Hakkasan Group or the Light Group back in the day, they will possibly not be around, but those spaces still exist. If the company that runs the Marquee over at the Cosmopolitan, because I think that's a chain, they might have some in other countries, tell me in the comments below if I'm right or wrong. If they can't survive this current pandemic that we're having, then I guess we have a giant space that'll either be converted, but I know there's other management companies that are rich, rare, and ready to go. There's somebody who will probably come in and run that space when they can't open back up. So I would not assume that the nightclubs and day clubs are forever gone in Las Vegas. I would assume they're on hold, just like the Gaming Commission is saying they're on hold, and they should be back soon. Lastly, meetings and conventions. Meetings and convention spaces are to be limited to 250 people at a time, based on the space. Obviously, if you have a room that can sit 250 people when they're all sitting next to each other on a chair, that's not going to pass muster, but that's going to be the limit for large-scale conventions for now. Which means that you could still come here with 1,000 people, but you might have to do your meetings in 4 different places and 4 different rooms. Most convention space and areas in Vegas are like the gymnasium at a high school or a middle school or a junior high school, if you're in Canada, if you will, where they can have partitions run down the center of the building, and you can have no problem in actually creating 4 separate rooms so you can socially distance people. And they said also the food will be monitored. We'll make sure that the food is clean and all this. This is the common regular stuff that you'd expect from a good event, keeping people clean. Now, what about the smaller casinos? Well, that's pretty easy. The smaller casinos are still going to have to adhere to the 50% capacity. So if a bar could hold 200, now it can hold 100. If the bar has bill changers, they're recommending the bill changers not be used, so people will minimize touching things. But the other thing about those is that there are no table games inside the small establishments. There's a few chains out here. There's Dottie's, there's PT's, there's a couple like Wildfire. These are small chains. Their gaming comes by the way of multi-touch, multi-denominational machines. It's essentially a touch screen. If you want to play poker, you tap on the type of poker game. If you want to play blackjack, you tap it. The screen becomes a blackjack. And so they have buttons on the bottom. They have touch screens. Everything is going to be touched, so we're going to have to disinfect those, make sure those are clean from player to player, or maybe put it on the people to be self-service. But then again, my experience is when people are asked to be self-service and self-policing, obviously we don't really pay attention when we're drinking and doing our thing and having fun and watching the game. We might not remember to do that, so the establishments are going to have to be up on that to keep their guests safe and clean. But the question is, what do you think about all these? Do you think that it's a good idea? Do you think this is not an experience that you want? I hear a lot of people say, I'm going to wait for Las Vegas and go somewhere else. And the more I hear about it, Princess Cruise Lines closing down until the 2021, Disney not opening back up. If Disney doesn't open back up, there's a good chance none of the other smaller parks like Six Flags or Canada's Wonderland, they might not open back up. So if you've got no options and we are the only game in town, are you still not going to come here? Are you going to stare at your walls for the next 18 months? You tell me in the comments below. I hope you do come back to Vegas if you feel comfortable. If you don't, then just wait, but we hope to welcome you back someday. My name is Steven. I'm not leaving Las Vegas. I'm a Vegas blogger. I do these videos so you don't have to do the research. I don't tell you what to think. I ask you what you think. Maybe you guys can make a better decision that way. Like, share, subscribe to videos. Hit the bell for notifications. Drop us a comment below. Let us know what you think. And if you want to be in the credits, head on over to Patreon or get some merchandise or do something on the Facebook group. All the support helps a lot. You guys have no idea. The people that are here are awesome, and I thank you for watching because you're awesome too. Now's the time of the video, though, where I have to say 3, 2, 1, click. So if you're ready for this, we're going to say 3, 2, 1, click. 3, 2, 1, and click.